Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to an all new season of the much loved Sim Racing Collective GT4 series as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right folks, we are back for an all new season after an incredible second season, the best part of a year ago in the Abruzzi GT4 Championship. The Sim Racing Collective has brought the premier GT4 series back for your viewing pleasure, and we kick it off all once again tonight here in the United Kingdom at the Oulton Park International Circuit. 6 rounds, lie weight, 8 races in total, and over 40 competitors registered to be on the grid. It is going to feel like the home from homes here as our drivers get set to go racing. And what a season we have got in store, because compared to last season, in the last year, we have seen plenty of change when it comes to the GT4 grid. Firstly, we have 2 new entrants on the grid, including the most recently introduced Ford Mustang GT4 with its wonderful sonorous 5-litre V8 engine. And we also do have, of course, the new variant of the G82 M4 from the BMW marque, also known as the bearish Verken machinery, and as the drivers get set to use those machines, they will be joined of course by none other than the regulars of the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, the Porsche Cayman 718, the McLaren 570S, and as well as that the Mercedes AMG. So 6 different machines, 6 different rounds, and there's plenty of changes afoot, because we of course do have an all new tyre and physics model for these GT4 machines. Gone are the cars that used to be very easy to drive. They're much more lively now and present a much bigger challenge for our drivers, and they'll need to rise to the challenge today. And on top of that as well, we also do have the introduction of an all-new sprint race format that will be making up 2 of the rounds of the season. But we open it up today on something that's quite familiar with a feature race round here in the UK. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side. You're tuning in right now, of course, via the official YouTube channel of the Sim Racing Collective. Indeed, go to youtube.com and search for TSRC or the Sim Racing Collective, and you can be tuning in and join the likes of many, including none other, first and foremost there, Michelle Matchett, who we say good evening to, and I hope you're doing well, Michelle, and all set for some brilliant racing action tonight. But whether you're Michelle or alternatively another viewer, don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing this fine Monday evening. If you've got a bit of a frown because you've got the Monday blues, well don't worry, we're here to turn that frown upside down into a smile and provide you with some absolutely incredible racing action entertainment along the way. In the commentary booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX121 or Britain as Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I shall be bringing you all your racing action over the entirety of the season starting tonight. And a huge thank you to the Sim Racing Collective for having me back after the previous MX5 Championship, which was absolutely riveting, no doubt about it, for 2025, and we're back here again to bring you plenty of racing action as we get underway today. In terms of our schedule for tonight, and times in the UK time zone, so that being Greenwich Mean Time GMT or Universal Coordinate Time UTC, as we can see, because we are in our main regular feature race format, and this will be for rounds 1, 2, 4 and 6. We will be sticking to only one race today, and coming up first of course is our 10-minute solo qualifying session, 3 laps available to each of our drivers, plus of course their outlap, and that's due to get underway in approximately 2 minutes time at 8:05 this evening, after which we'll make our way to the grid for our 40-minute feature race, and that will be set to get underway at 8:15 this evening. It real feels like it's a classic showdown here at Oulton Park, and indeed the circuit is synonymous with GT4 racing machinery and played host on an annual basis for several years now to the British GT Championship opener, and of course that grid being a combination of GT3 and GT4 machinery each and every year. But let's take a look at our calendar then as we come into our season opening round, and as we can see we've got quite the eclectic calendar, because we open up today on the 10th of November 2025 at the Oulton Park International Circuit. In a week's time we make our way to Italy for the Mugello Grand Prix circuit, and indeed they're the fast sweeping corners and its wide open racing surface will in sharp contrast to the aggressive elevation changes and narrow width of Oulton Park tonight. Then in round number 3, for the first of our 2 sprint race rounds, we're making our way to the US of A for the Virginia International Raceway's full course, and that's going to feel quite similar to Oulton Park, albeit the circuit located on the other side of the Atlantic. And then, going into the second half of the season, we'll make our way to Belgium for everybody's second favourite Belgian circuit, that being Circuit Zolder. It's Grand Prix Lout in round number 4 on the 1st of December, and then we'll be making our way all the way back to the US of A for the Sonoma Raceway in the US state of California for the sports car alternate layout of the wonderful circuit, and that'll be the second of our sprint race rounds there as we experiment with that new format. And then our season finale, well, where better to bring things to a close and head into Christmas other than at the Mount Panorama circuit, but you will know and love it and refer to it as Bathurst, and that's where we'll be crowning not not only are King of the Mountain, but also our champions in the Pro and Am classes. So that's our calendar there, and he did an absolutely brilliant calendar put together by the masterminds at the Sim Racing Collective. And as we come into this round, well, let's talk a little bit about our host circuit. For it is the international layout of the Oulton Park circuit, located near the village of Little Budworth in the county of Cheshire in England, the United Kingdom. This circuit, for those both based in the United Kingdom and further abroad, is a staple of British motorsport and arguably is the home of motorsport in the northwest of England. A circuit which does span 2.6 miles in totality and consists of a grand total of 17 corners. It is a circuit that presents an absolutely brilliant challenge with its elevation changes being interspersed amongst its corner apexes and also on the straights. And to do well here, our drivers will need to be brave, they'll need to be bold and ready to attack a late apex. Many of these corners, of course, being blind at the apex, and therefore on entry, you've got to fully commit and have the muscle memory to know exactly how much speed you need to carry. Where it be Old Hall corner at turn number 1 and the roar down the avenue and into Dentons and Cascades. Well, there the bump just before Cascades could see many a driver understeer wide, but if they get it right, it'll be a long run up through Island Bend into Shell Oil's corner, which will be the charge all the way down the back straight over the hilltop, interrupted by the Britain chicane. At the end of the hilltop, they'll find their way down into the braking zone for the Hislop chicane, after which it'll be a roar up the hill from Knickerbrook, and it'll be very narrow for Clay Hill and Water Tower before they get to Druids Bend at turn number 15, the double right-hand apex corner, which can catch out even the very best of drivers with its undulations midway through the bend. But should they survive that, they'll make their way onto the Warwick Bridge and into Lodge Bend at turn number 16, which marks, of course, the old lodge of the circuit, and as they make the way out, it's in a deer leaps away from the checker flag, or at least going on to another lap. And a big thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator in which we're hosting this series, but also the fantastic track mats contained within it. But enough about a two-dimensional image, because with all the elevation changes, this is a three-dimensional circuit. There's plenty of certainty about that. A quick reminder then of the rules. They haven't changed too much since the previous season. We can't go racing without them. Setup-wise, this is a fixed setup series with drivers bringing a fixed setup as determined by the Sim Racing Collective admins to each and every race. Qualifying-wise, a closed qualifying format shall be used with drivers having 3 flying laps available, and that qualifying session is just getting underway currently, with a feature race seeing each driver having 1 fast repair available, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 70 or more instant points, not that they should, and all race stewarding for instance shall be conducted post-round. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying starts, and as it does so, let's look to some of our drivers making their way around the circuit right now, including none other than Tom Davidson here for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, as he gradually tiptoes his way on through the Hislop chicane. He's opted to go to the Mercedes AMG, and a very popular car, this Mercedes, when it arrived on the iRacing Simulator service, for the simple reason, 6.3 litres of V8 machinery right up front. What's there not to love about the wonderful German marque with its absolutely deep roar from that naturally aspirated engine? But as he makes his way on through, we do, of course, have another TSRC Esports driver in the form of Kieran Sharp. He's decided to go with the McLaren, and when I caught up with him in the build-up to today, he was saying that whilst he's gone for the McLaren, he doesn't think it's the right car here for Oulton Park, and the balance of performance may keep him in check. Remember, of course, that last time out in the MX-5 series, he was one of the runners-up, and the last time we went GT4 race in the best part of a year ago in the Abruzzi GT4 series, or Season 2 of this championship, we saw Jamie Nuttall take the pro crown, and it was Kieran Sharp who ended up finishing as the runner-up ahead of Richard Simnor, and that was your top 3, but Jamie Nuttall proved to be absolutely unstoppable at the top of the field. And in the AM class, meanwhile, well, I can tell you one thing, that Jamie Nuttall, I believe, is back on the grid to defend his champion rights, albeit we are waiting for the confirmation of that, although he's not here today, I can tell you that. In fact, he might be taking a break season. If so, he's given somebody else the opportunity to take a crown, having recently, of course, taken the crown as well in the MX-5 Championship. But what we do have in the AM class, meanwhile, is we do have none other than Matt Cheverton, who's back on the grid, and he's here to defend his honours. Albeit, of course, we do have to keep in mind that he has now moved to the pro class, so therefore he's stepping up in the competition, and the Aztec Racing driver in the 390, the Ford Mustang, he's now going to have to take the absolute premier competition to task, and we will be expecting to see a new AM champion come the end of the season. Speaking of which, your run-up last time out in the AMs was none other than Bart Raven in the GT4 Championship, and James Massaskow was 3rd place finisher, also for Aztec Racing. But Bart Raven, being from the Cracked Racing team, well, he's also been moved up to the pro class, so therefore we will have a new name leading the way in the AM class by the end of the season. But that's always the theme, of course. The previous champions, and normally the previous top 3 of a given season and series, they will be moved up into the higher class, and that's to respect the fact they have really been the best of the best when it comes to their class, particularly when they're moving from AM to pro. Well, our first lap starts to come on the board, and Felix Smoggy there puts himself right to the top of the pile on a 1 minute 41.317 as he roars his way down the hill in the Ford Mustang there from Cracked Racing. And right now, lovely livery on the car, lovely looking car as well, and lovely lines there through Cascades. But Tom Davidson goes a bit faster, half a tenth there to put himself on provisional pole at 41.272. And in terms of how you can tell the difference between your pros and your AMs, well, in terms of the cars themselves, there's no differential, I do believe, with regards to the decals and the door banners, as we do look to the car Francesco Carduglio, and we can see the Italian makers went down. In fact, I do believe that the pros will have a black background against their door numbers. Meanwhile, the AMs, as you can see here for the Passione course driver on the 75, they will have a red background against the door number. The other way you can tell is by looking at the timing tower, and if they do have a red line against their name, such as for Carduglio here, well, that does mean that they are an AM driver. Meanwhile, those in silver, they will have pro status by comparison. So that's how you can tell who's of each class here, and therefore it's only going to keep things interesting. But as we do say hello to a few more of you in the YouTube chat, including at Big Pig Racing there, who's cheering on the Big Pig Racing team. We also say hello to Craig Twardock there, and very happy to have you tuned in, Craig, although I get the feeling that you'll want to be out of the circuit at some point if you're not already out there. And we also do have DQ Dave, or Disqualification Dave, and we also do say hello there to Eugenio Polici, who's cheering on Francesco Petalin. And of course, one of the favourites for this season is Francesco Petalin, because he's able to translate his ferocity in an MX-5 into a GT4 machine with the absolute motorsport ace-lift driver in the 992. He's definitely a very quick and very capable driver. The only thing that held him back in the MX-5s was the fact and whilst he had a lot of pace, he did seem to struggle in the heat of the battle sometimes. But of course, the MX-5 is a very different discipline of racing. It's very pack-orientated racing, whereas in GT4s, you can make a break away from each other. Whilst the slipstream is strong, when you get within a half a second and close into the car in front of you, it's not as powerful as MX-5s. These cars, these GT4 machines, if you're interested as to what makes a GT4, they are road cars. They are road sports cars. You can pick up a BMW M4 G82 on the road, albeit in the United Kingdom. You are going to be looking to the best part, if my memory serves me correctly. Back when the car was on sale, you would have been looking at the best part of approximately what would have been £82,000 for one brand new. But the point is, it is essentially the road car with all the interior parts, such as the rear seats, also a number of, say, the sat-nav and other electronics all stripped out. And then you have got a roll cage put in there, a quite large rearing put on, also some additional aerodynamic refinements, albeit they're quite minor. So the refinements include typically the likes of splitters at the front and rear, and that's how you get to a GT4 car. These are road cars which have had their power balanced, normally in the region of somewhere around 450 horsepower, typically over the rear wheels, but otherwise it is a lightened up road car with a spoiler added to the rear of it and some aerodynamic changes, and that is how they get onto the grid. And that's why GT4 racing is so popular around the world, because it's a highly accessible series, albeit you do have to have quite deep pockets, but nowhere near as deep perhaps as, say, GT3 class machines, which are road cars, but they have had a lot of aerodynamic refinements by comparison, and also the engines have been overtuned. But as Petalin makes his way down in towards turn number 3, where he goes on to his final flying lap, indeed several drivers do, and we need to get on board lap with one of our drivers, and we are going to do so in short order, and I believe we are going to get on board with none other, as he gets ready to go on to a flying lap in due course, with Ivan Falcon, who right now, there he is in the Italian job machine from Italy, the Mercedes AMG. He's yet to get a bad lap on the board. 30 drivers here today, but let's see what he can do then as he makes his way out of the final corner and onto a new flying lap. So powering his way then up towards turn number 1 and getting ready for Old Hall Bend. Looking to his left-hand side for his brake marker. It's more memory here. Chucks the car down to 3rd gear as he comes through the right-hander. Plenty of apex curve and on the power immediately. Now heading down the avenue in towards Denton's. It's unsighted here as you come over the crest and down. Brake nice and early. Avoid the bump in the road. Get it tight to Cascades. Hold, and now feed the throttle in. And the car will gradually steer out nice and wide. Lovely work there from Ivan as he roars his way now up towards Island Bend. Now here it's going to be a dab of the brakes, get the nose over the front of the car and chuck the car in, get the throttle back on immediately here, manage the understeer, now bring it over to left, hard on the brakes and coming in towards Shell Oils. He decides to point the car nice and early to the apex there and abuse the camber of the road. Getting the power down, a bit of power oversteer now as he makes his way for the curve of 6 and gets ready for the Britain chicane. Getting ready to go onto the brakes here, nice and early all the way down to 2nd gear, missing the tyre barriers by a hair's width. Back on the power now as he heads over the hilltop and now bringing the car very gently over to the left-hand side of the road. He's going to be looking for his brake marker. It will be around the 100-meter board. Hard on the brakes, all the way down to second gear. Right into left here as he makes his way through his lops. Now straight over to left-hand side to open up Knickerbrook Corner. Down the brake, push the car to the apex, and now on the throttle. And you've got to commit here all the way up through Clay Hill and Water Tower. Point the car straight, minimal steering initially, let the car roll to the right, and now chuck it into left-hander in preparation for Druids, and onto the brakes immediately here. As soon as you feel ready, let the car roll deep a little bit. Lets it run a bit too deep there, does Falcon, and as he comes over the crest there, well, thankfully that understeer stops oversteer kicking in over the bump, but it will have cost him some time as he now brakes into the Lodge Bend, takes it quite early at the apex there, I think unsettled by his mistake at Druids, and then in towards Deer Leap with a minute left to go. We have one more lap left on the table, but I don't think he's going to have enough time to do it. Well, it was a good lap there from Falcone, and that puts him all the way up to 18th place. So a decent lap, but you'll know that he's lost about 3 tenths from his mistakes, particularly at Druids, and therefore he's got some more time to go, as the Pro Drive right now is one of the lowest placed Pro Drives of them all. And in terms of lower drives, we do have, I believe, him being the lowest at this time, and Bart Raven, in fact, and Bobby Moss are also a bit lower than him, so I do apologise there for a bit of misinformation. But as Francesco Pettoli, meanwhile, he's at the other end of the field, and right now he's on a cool-down lap. It does seem as though Tom Davidson's going to take provisional pole, and we're at the first pole position of the season overall in Pro. And in terms of the AM class right now, it's Daniel Moffat who's got off to a flying start with 10th place if it currently stands, and all these drivers are looking very, very good. And Big Pig Racing there saying, I believe GT4 is meant to be 80-20 road to race car, whereas GT3 is 20-80 road car to race car, and I think you're absolutely spot on there, in fact, Big Pig Racing. I think that is absolutely correct. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, qualifying is complete. Our drivers are now going to make their way to the grid for our first race of the season. And coming up very shortly is round number 1. So as they head onto the grid, this is how they'll line up then for our season opener here at the Oulton Park International Circuit in the United Kingdom. And well, season 3 of the Sim Racing Collective GT4 series gets underway with Tom Davidson starting on pole position for the first time today for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. He'll be joined on the front row, pro and overall, by Francesco Pettolin for Absolute Motorsport Ace-Lift. Behind them on row number 2, it's going to be the combination pair of Alessandro Delladone, and the Italian job driver will be joined there by Andrew Pyatt for the Sim Racing Collective Esports. We'll then have, starting on the third row of the grid, iRacing Esports' Nick Clibbins, who's right behind his rival, but we keep an eye on his German peer alongside him. From Cracked Racing, it's Felix Smoggy. We then do have Martin Blankensteiner from Denmark starting 7th there, just behind his teammate, and the Cracked Racing driver will then be followed up by DLR FP1, and that's in the form of Marlon Schwab. From them, it will then be a further what is 200th, if that's Alan McCain for iRacing Esports, with the Irishman being contested on that 5th row of the grid by your AM pole sitter, Daniel Moffat, who does a brilliant job there to put himself inside the top 10, the only AM to do so. Indeed, he has a little bit of breathing room. Kieran Sharp will begin the day in 11th place for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, best of the rest, ahead of Matt Cheverton for Aztec Racing. And then behind them on row number 7, it's Valeria Petretti for the Italian job, who takes 2nd place in the AM class ahead of Sam Smith for iRacing Esports. Mav Gardner begins the day 15th for the Sim Racing Collective Esports ahead of Mark Davenport. And Davenport there having a good start to his season with 3rd place in qualifying and ahead in the AM class and ahead of a good portion of the field. And behind him at 17th overall is Miles Owens for Artura Esports. Ivan Falcone in the end left it a bit late in qualifying to try and improve, and the Italian job driver has to start 18th. But from the Italian, it will then be the Briton Martin Rendell, who's 19th, and round off your top 20, it's going to be Big Pig Racing by VRS's Clive Bourne. And I do know the Big Pig Racing team are here in full force today, not just on the circuit, but also in the fan group to cheer on their drivers. Francesco Cardulio starts in 21st, so Passion of course, ahead of Palomaniti. And then we do have on row number 12, it's going to be Lenny Hansen for Bottle Job Racing and Paul Sims, the privateer, who after a brilliant start to his MX-5 season, it all went backwards early on. Can he avoid the same here today? We will see. Bart Raven starts 25th for Cracked Racing, a disappointing qualifying performance there from the Dutch driver, and he'll be in the company of Craig Murphy. With then Bobby Moss starting 27th for Nigel Mansell Fan Club ahead of Valeria Tedeschi, and then we will have on the final row of the grid starting 29th Vincenzo Carillo for the Italian job, and Luke Smith rounds off the starting order there for FD Racing. But if I know Luke, he may have had a slow start to his qualifying, but he gains time over the season. We saw that in the MX-5s, and he'll be looking to do exactly the same again here today as he gets his GT4 GT4 Championship campaign underway. So that's how they all start, ladies and gentlemen. 30 drivers have been able to make the trip to none other than what is the Oulton Park International Circuit. And as that field sits there right now, we do have a partial formation lap. It will be a rolling start for this season. GT4 racing does normally get underway from a rolling start, unlike lower class machinery in terms of power and pace, such as MX-5s. But with the rolling start here, it does mean as well you'll see them go double file racing, and that's going to be incredibly entertaining when they do get underway. And everyone just parked up currently behind the BMW M2 CS Racing safety car, and well, that safety car is about to start pulling away. And as everyone gets themselves ready, we say hello to Blurper, who's cheering on Italian Job and Passione, of course. And good evening to you, good sir. I hope you're doing well. We see Michelle Matchett cheering on Luke Smith for FD Racing, which is absolutely brilliant to see. Great to have you with us once again, Michelle. And well, everyone now starts to move forward. And Craig Twaldwick says, shame I can't race tonight. Indeed, Craig, we're missing you already after your absolutely monster performances in the MX-5s. And it'd be good to hear your insights if you've got any with regards to your practice in the GT4 and how you found that transition for going from the MX-5 to the GT4 machine. But as Tom Davidson makes his way along, we look back to your previous AM champion who we ride on board with, and this is none other than Matt Cheverton. And in his mind, of course, he'll be thinking it's a new page in his story, it's a new chapter in his book as he's made his way into pro. But can he impress here? Who is going to impress is really the question. Well, 40 minutes of racing is what's going to tell us that very quickly here today, because it will be a 40-minute open air at Oulton Park, and we're only seconds away from going green flag racing. And immediately Tom Davison decides to go as the safety car comes on in. He's not waiting, and it's go, go, go for Season 3 of the Sim Racing Collective GT4 Series at iRacing. And Davison immediately under pressure of Pettinen, who nails and catches him out at the start, but runs a little bit wide as they come through turn number 1, and down the hill they roar in towards Denton's, and then Cascades for the first time. It's a squeeze on the inside there for Nick Clemens. He tries to muscle his way through, but that doesn't work. Further back, we've also got some brilliant side-by-side fighting. Daniel Moffat's been caught napping in the Taco Bell machine, as we can see that Valerio Pedetti trying to make his way around the outside. Can't quite do so as they now head up towards Island Bend, but Tom Davidson has found a way ahead with Alessandro Dalladonic getting ahead of Francesco Pettinen after Pettinen was very enthusiastic at the start to try and make the move, but it didn't quite work out, and all the field now comes on through it to Shells Bend. It's been a brilliant start to this race. Everyone has safely made it through the opening few quarters, which is great to see. Oulton Park is known for having major off tracks at the start of the race, but everybody's got it right. And as we do see Sam Smith here trying to attack Miles Owens a bit further back, we have got an absolutely big AM scrap, because we do have Martin Brendel here holding on to full place at the moment, but he's got Codulo, Bourne, and also Maniti and Hansen all over the back of him, as right now the top 3 at AM are being allowed to walk away. As they all coming down the hill, everyone on the dry tyre. We're not expecting any wet tyres here today, and therefore we'll hide that from your screen. Well, what we can see right now is that all these drivers bobbing and weaving their way between the corners, side by side a bit further back. That's Lenny Hansen fighting side by side by Bart Raven. Raven here takes a bit too much grass, and Raven in the end goes sideways into the gravel, almost ends up on 2 wheels there. Somebody's got around on the other side of him. I believe that is none other than Vincenzo Carrillo, who's had a spin, and I think Carrillo there just a bit too eager with the loud pedal as he's come out of Knickerbrook Bend. But meanwhile, looking back towards the front of the field, the pros are fighting hard, and it's Felix Smoggy who are right now defending hard versus Nick Clemens. They make the way out of turn number 16 and on towards the timeline they go, and that is 1 lap of mini complete here today. But after 1 lap, it's Davison ahead of Dalladon, followed by Pettinen. Then we have Pike. Smoggy's in 5th ahead of Clemens, followed by Blankenstein. Then it's McCain sitting in 8th ahead of Schwab, then Sharp. That's your top 10, and Matt Cheverton right now is a length best of rest, with AM leader Daniel Moffat keeping in close company there in 12th place. And while we do have your second place AM driver Valerio Pretetti in their 14th. He's just ahead of Sam Smith and Miles Owens, and Mark Davenport completes your top 3 in the AM class. But as they all head onwards, well, right now these drivers absolutely trying to get themselves dialed in here. And one of the biggest challenges of these GT4 machines is that the tyres take quite a lot of time now to get up to temperature. Previously, a year ago, you didn't even need to complete half lap and the car felt absolutely planted. Now, the tyres, they take a long time to get up to temperature, but even when they are up to temperature, the rear ends of these cars are quite aggressive, and that goes with the GT4 machine, because essentially what you do is you pitch the car forward on the nose, with the ride height being higher on the rear compared to the front, so therefore it creates instability over the rear axle to give you rotation. But also these cars are a lot lighter than they used to be simulated in the iRacing simulator, and therefore it means direction changes can be very quick and snappy compared to how they used to be, and that is what a driver's had to contend with. And that's why I think we had a few moments of drivers earlier earlier on coming through Knickerbrook Bend when then they took a bit too much grass and the car got carried on through. Alternatively, they just came around a little bit too soon for what the grip of the tyres could handle. But looking a bit further back, Valera Tedeschi here as Bart Raven again. Another mistake, exactly the same corner. The cracked racing driver right now. They say you never make the same mistake twice, but I don't think he's learned his lesson for that one, but he gets it back together straight away. And the cracked racing driver right now will be kicking himself over that one, but still, he's got a long way to go, and he will know there are plenty of opportunities here. And should we see a safety car or any mix-ups in strategy, you never know what can happen, to be fair. It's not over until the checker flag, and in terms of motorsport, there's one thing they do normally say, which is anything can happen along the way to checker flag, and it normally does. As Francesco Pettelin right now all over the back of Alessandro Dalladoni as they head up towards Island Bend. And right now he plays the game of waiting patiently here as they make the way onwards. But understandably, I think his thought process at this point in time is going to be what he can't make in terms of places. Instead, he can make up some time in terms of strategy, because the one thing that our drivers need to be aware of is the fact they do have restricted fuel tanks, and that is likely to mandate what will be a pit stop at least for fuel over the race distance. Now, there are no rules to say you have to pit in the race. You take the car, you do what you need to do with it to get to the checker flag. If you try to fuel save to get to the end of the race without refueling, you can do that, but it's potentially suboptimal in terms of strategy. But for Pettelin, if he's caught up behind Dalladoni as close as he is right now, he may want to consider some fuel saving, just some lift and coasting, and he also may wish to protect the tyres to give himself a bit more of a punchy car towards the end of the race, where the timings are going to be more pivotal, and of course, places become much more critical. Over the hill he goes, and this lovely on board, really giving you an idea of how narrow the circuit is and how close you get under braking to your rivals through these corners. But right now it is a Mercedes leading 3 BMWs and a Ford Mustang, and we have 3 different manufacturers inside the top 5, which is absolutely brilliant to see, and Pettin representing one of them with certainty. Felix Smoggy there getting close to the back of Andrew Pike as they make the way out through Old Hall, or through Lodge Bend there. Old Hall's turn number 1. Let me get in the right order. And as they do for Smoggy right now, well, he's close, but not quite close enough to think about a move. But I think Nick Clivens is trying to stay with him. Clivens, who had a bit of a brazen start, he tried to go up the inside into Denton's, which isn't always recommended at the race start because it gets very close into turn number 2, which they make the way through now. But he decides to be brave about it, and we are going to take a look back at the race start, ladies and gentlemen, and also some replays from earlier in the race, and here we go. So this was back to the very beginning as we briefly looked at the scenic view there for some reason, and on camera finally catches up with everything. And the focus here is on none other than Nick Clivens, and this was his race start. Quite an aggressive start from Clivens. You'll see him there masked a little bit by the BMW in front, but trying to look up the inside there of the number 57 of Andrew Pike. Got the better exit out of turn number 1. The number 13 driver here is going to now find himself beached slightly onto the Denton's curb, and well, he decided to cut it as much as possible to look round the outside of Pettelin. It went all in for it, but then by being out on the wide, he ended up running off to the grass, and that's what enabled what was there both Andrew Pike and Felix Smoggy to try and come back at him into Island Bend. And well, it was Pike who was able to get on through, but for Smoggy, he had to wait a little bit longer, and indeed it was later on as they made the way towards the end of lap. But meanwhile, in terms of some moments for other drivers, this is what happened to Bart Raven on the opening lap. He was battling at the time with the number, I believe that's the 9180 he was fighting with. And in the end, both drives onto the grass. Oh, goodness me. And that was Paul Sims, who somehow manages to stop it literally on the rejoin. And well done to everybody there who was making the way through Shell Oil's corner. That's great awareness from everybody to be able to make sure that Sims in the end did not come careening on through. And we could have had a bit of a natural disaster there, but not quite so. Unfortunately, Sims did lose some places, and we're battling side by side there with the McLaren, that being the number 5 of Bobby Moss, and Moss getting back ahead there, but well controlled to everyone. And this was Sims on board perspective when it went a bit wrong. So carried a bit too much speed, and as he made his way on through, well, went onto the brakes, and as he did so there, well, the car went to the right, and in the end managed to get it stopped just in the nick of time, and well, thankfully it did not end up in tears. Meanwhile, it was tears for Vincenzo Carillo as he made his way out of Knickerbrook Bend, the Italian drop driver. The rear of the car already letting go on turning there. He turned him way too soon, and the number 86 driver in the end finding his aggression has come back to bite him. On lap number 2, we had this for Paolo Maniti, as the privateer made his way into turn number 1, and I think this is going to be a brief off track. Yes, it was just getting a bit aggressive with those track limits there, but kept it back together. And well, those were your big months, ladies and gentlemen, from the very start of the race. Albeit I believe we did have Bobby Moss come into the pit lane for some description. Was there damage or not? We're not quite sure, but we are going to come back to your live racing for the time being, just simply because we don't want to miss all the action as it unfolds. So Clemens then still under pressure from Blankensteiner as they head on through Knickerbrook Bend, and our camera struggles to keep up with them. That's the speed with which they're taking the corner, and also the angle which our poor cameraman's having to turn his neck through as they make the way up towards what will be Druids Bend again. Well, Clemens here in a very different car compared to most of its peers. The Porsche Cayman, of course, known for its handling prowess, mid-engine rear-wheel drive, not quite in the same ballpark as the Porsche 911s. It's bigger brothers, if you will, with this car being mid-engine rear-wheel drive. Meanwhile, the Porsche 911's being rear-engine rear-wheel drive, where the engine is situated over the rear axle. But here in the Cayman's instance, it's mid-engine rear-wheel drive, where the engine is behind the driver, but it is ahead of the rear axle. That's why it's called mid-engine, but rear-wheel drive because the power goes to the rear wheels. You have a couple of mid-engine rear-wheel drive machines on the grid, including also Kieran Sharp's McLaren. But this McLaren, a bit less of a handling car, a bit more of an all-rounder, and also a very good car and fuel as we're to understand it. So therefore, Clemens in his Porsche, he definitely has all the handling capabilities, but he may not have the speed on the straight, as Marlon Schwab, a Porsche driver there, gets a little bit too firm with the amount of speed he can try and carry out at turn number 3, and that's going to enable Matt Cheverton to go up the inside of him there before Island Bend. And as they all make the way on through, well, right now Marlon Schwab definitely, I think, realises his mistake and wants to try and get back in as quickly as possible in the DLR FP1 machine. The 364 driver is going to have to wait his turn. Back to the AMs, where it's getting quite exciting here as the Iron Brew machine from Big Pig Racing by VRS of Clive Bonzo over the back of Palamaniti as they head on around. We ride aboard the dashboard here of the 807, and I will have to ask him the question at some point, is he a big fan of the Iron Brew drink, or is he just running that for sponsorship reasons? I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I've tasted Iron Brew. I can't recommend it. However, I do believe it favours someone of a certain disposition, as Bourne there takes a lot of power oversteer coming out of what was the Britain's chicane, and well, Maniti having the same struggles in his own Ford Mustang. Both drivers trying to get the power down very eagerly on that direction change, and neither driver being able to get away from it here as Bourne. Meanwhile, he's definitely looking the more aggressive driver, the more comfortable driver at this point in time. I get the feeling for Maniti, meanwhile, he might just be trying to take it a little bit easy and not push himself too hard. We'll have to wait and see then as they head in towards Druids Bend, as they roll the way through, and Big Pig Racing, they're saying, we're going to sort our livery soon, I promise. Well, don't feel under any pressure, good sir, because I must admit the livery is nice on the car, but of course, if you have got a livery plan, we look forward to seeing it when it is ready, but I can appreciate livery work takes a lot of time. But as board here gets nice and close, well, too close to comfort there, and the reason why it's known as Lodge Bend is in reference to the old lodges where you can actually pay to stay overnight on a race day. Now there, and indeed the old gatehouse for the Oulton Park estate is also found at that corner, and indeed it's one of the most iconic parts of the circuit when it comes to scenery. But right now, Clive Bourne exploring the scenery when it comes to the grass there coming out of turn number 1, and indeed he wants to get his focus back in as quickly as he can, and those mistakes cost him a bit of time. As we leave them for a brief moment, we'll fight going on behind between Craig Murphy and Lenny Hansen. And Lenny Hansen right now in the rather lime green BMW M4, the car that almost got collected by Paul Sims with their altercation coming into Shellwell's Bend on the open lap of the race, but thankfully it did not go the wrong way, and Craig Murphy right now close, but not quite close enough to try and make a move here, as Hansen briefly disappears and rematerialises from the proverbial ether, and hopefully that's not the sign of a technical issue coming with the car. Murphy right now just trying to stay in touch, albeit it's going to be hard work. Meanwhile, speaking of hard work, a bit of a change of position there for a brief moment for Valerio Tedeschi as Martin Rendell has just passed him, coming up towards what has been the Britain chicane. And Luke Smith, he's had a good start to race, having started all the way back in 30th place. The FD Racing driver is now up into 11th in the AM class and 25th overall. And right now the 174 driver is gradually making progress. It's great to see, to be fair. Everybody in front of him is lapping a little bit faster at the moment, but the nice thing is the fact he's staying out of trouble and he's trying to find some more places out there, and in doing so, well, naturally all that experience will add up, and you never know, to be fair, he may surprise and make his way into the top 10 of the AM class before all is said and done. He's just got to keep his confidence, and with it, he may just be able to find a few more points today. But as we make our way into the second quarter of this race, we need to take a look back at some overtakes, including, firstly, how Martin Rendell passed Valerio Tedeschi. Now this was coming out of Shellwell's Bend, and well, you are going to see Tedeschi try and get the power down there, but a very slow exit out the corner. I suspect that might have been power oversteer, and Rendell a lot more comfortable in the car and was able to make his way around quite quickly. We also did have this off camera. This was a 6th place overall. This is Martin Blankensteiner attacking Nick Clemens, and as they made the way through Clay Hill and into Walter Tower, Blankensteiner in the end went all in for it. Clemens defended the outside there, and the cracked racing driver decided to gamble all in, and he got it done. done. But then it was Clemens trying to come back at him down towards Lodge Bend, but he couldn't quite find a way and had to wait his turn. So 2 moves there being made by drivers up and down the field. Great to see as we come back to your live racing. As we do, back to the very front of the field, and Tom Davidson right now, he's trying to check out of this race as quickly as he can. Gap is 1.5 seconds ahead of Dalladone as they come down through Druids, but the Mercedes driver right now is finding it's not easy to break away here. Not because he can't, not because he hasn't got the pace, but I suspect because Dalladone and also Pettinet are both feeling as though they've got similar pace, and therefore they can match him. And whilst the 2 BMW drivers make the way on through, it's getting intriguing here, because surely at some point the leading Italian here of Alessandro Dalladone has got to realise what's actually happening in a way is that if he continues to drive at 100% and Pettelin can stay with him, he is naturally driving against strategy here, whereby Pettelin, in theory, if he can save some fuel, may be able to get back ahead. The only question mark, of course, is how hard is Dalladone pushing? And on top of that as well, if he does not push, is he going to lose Davidson? And Davidson might be given the opportunity here to really just take this race. So it is a bit of a gamble here for Dalladone. Does he attack or does he defend or does he go somewhere in between? As Blankensteiner, meanwhile, still battling here with Clemens. Clemens trying to come back at him there through Cascades, but not so into Island Bend. But Blankensteiner right now really having to work this one hard. And this fight for 6th place right now is falling away. It's giving Felix Schmoggy the opportunity to be able to walk away with 5th place, now 2.5 seconds up the road. But an absolutely superb fight here, and you're seeing 2 very different cars in terms of how they make up the lap time, and that balance of performance absolutely pitch perfect here to create a phenomenal back and forth fight. But right now Blankenstein has a much better run over Hilltop, and you can see the V8 of that Ford Mustang absolutely being able to pull away at pace. But as soon as we get into these low to medium speed bends, that is when Nick Clemens, oh my goodness, Clemens almost loses it there, took way too much apex curb, and Nick Corder, and it almost sent the car around. I was about to say, you'll see that Clemens is able to take a lot more speed through the corners, but got a little bit too enthusiastic there with the curb usage and has fallen back slightly. But meanwhile, we fall back to what is your AM leaders fighting over 13th place, and as they do, well, Daniel Moffat then, the Taco Bell BMW M4, where he's got Valerio Petretti right behind him, then the Mercedes AMG, and these 2 have not been more separated than a second in all over the race distance so far. And that just goes to show 2 very equal drivers, 2 different machines, albeit they make up their speed in similar ways. The BMW being a little bit more sensitive when it comes to that rear end. It does come through corners a bit more aggressively compared to the Mercedes at the cost of straight line speed. The Mercedes, meanwhile, does not like low speed bends. It picks up a lot of torque in the lower RPM bands, and particularly in second gear, it will struggle when it tries to get the power down. And oh, goodness me, struggling there goes Petretti as he takes a bit of grass on the rear right tyre down into Cascades, and the car slides loose there, and the Italian job driver trying to explore the track limits as much as possible, and he lulls himself into a mistake, and with it relinquishes second place in AM to Mark Davenport, who now comes underneath our cameraman there, and as they make the way up towards Shell Oils Bend, well, Davenport's going to have a big smile on his face because he'll know that's another place in his pocket, albeit the only problem is now he's got to try and find a way to close down Daniel Moffat, who is 3.6 seconds up the road. And understandably, I think Moffat at this point will be thinking to himself, okay, I've got the break, now I need to really go for it, with Miles Owens being the segregator of the 2 for Altura Esports. But, well, we will see exactly where Miles Owens is going to go from this point onwards, because, of course, he'd love to get past Moffat and go hunting after Mav Gardner. Now, for the uninitiated, in terms of how the points are awarded come the end of each and every race, well, we're not going to go through the exact points numbers, because otherwise we may bore you to death with a little bit of statistics, but the key facts you need to know: this is a class-based Drivers' Championship. There's no Teams' Championship, as I'm to understand it. There are only 2 Drivers' Championships, one for the pros, one for the AMs, and each class will score points based on the class finishing position. So Tom Davidson, as your leader right now, he won't pick up any bonus points for being the overall winner. He will just pick up the winner's points for finishing first in class. If we had an AM driver take overall victory, which is not impossible to be fair, it can happen. Well, if we do have an AM driver take overall victory, they won't get a special set of points because they took the overall victory. They will get a big round of applause and potentially a Hall of Fame recognition, but they will just take the points if they were the AM winner in class, and that's going to be the big focus. So therefore, it does add a bit of intrigue in the fact when you do see the intermingling of the classes, which is always expected but not necessarily guaranteed, it then becomes a bit of a gamble between drivers, because if you are, for example, Mark Davenport a bit further back in the picture here, or do you have to fight your way past Miles Owens to get to Daniel Moffat, or do you use Miles Owens to help you get to the AM leader? that is a bit of a challenge, and that's where the intrigue comes in. But right now, Matt Cheverton still chasing after Alan McCain. These two, of course, are regular rivals when it comes to racing, whether it be in touring cars, MX-5s, or here today in GT4 machines. They've been on the grid with each other now for the best part of what is 3 years across extensive series, whether it be the Sim Racing Collective Series, Next Gen Racing Series, or other championships. And right now, Cheverton looking quite good here versus the iRacing Esports drivers. He looks around the outside, braking nice and early there for McCain. Cheverton squeezed out slightly, which is the right of McCain. He was 3/4 of the way ahead going in towards what was the second part of the chicane, and we briefly lost McCain, then he rematerialises. But Cheverton right now really good on those medium speed corner exits, gets a brilliant run out of Knickerbrook Bend. This is going to be too wide here as they come over the rise and in towards Druids, but Cheverton now is on the outside. Can he go for the cutback? The answer is no. McCain calls his bluff and decides to put himself right in the middle of the road and says to Cheverton, you can cut it back, but you're going to make contact and we will both go to the barrier. Meanwhile, Marlon Schwab catches up to the back of this and he looks to try and get involved as they continue to fight over 9th place in the Pro Class here, and coming down the hill right now and over the lead. Will we see anybody duck to the pits? Because if so, this might be an opportunity here. If the fighting gets fierce and they know they've got to make a slight fuel pit stop, it could be a good time here to get yourself out of the running order. The only problem, of course, is if you pit from here, do you come out in traffic further down the order? Do you find yourself in amongst all the AMs who are particularly fighting for what is, I believe now, 3rd place? Speaking of which, here is Valerio Petretti, the man who went wide at Cascades only a couple of laps ago, and he has got Francesco Cordulo behind him as they head in towards the corner where it went wrong for the Italian drop driver earlier on, albeit the ITJ machine still keeping on the road for now, but I think he will be a little bit wary of that corner and what it means to his potential race as he tries to chase down Davenport again with 3.8 seconds ahead. But through they come and into the pit lane meanwhile. Here's Martin Rendell for his pit stop, albeit as a faithful little safety car right in front of him, but he's going to be waiting there patiently as Bobby Moss, meanwhile, makes his way onwards to the Nigel Mansell fan club. And I do wonder where he's potentially for what is Movember, or November, but Moustache November, normally a cause for charities in the United Kingdom and potentially further abroad as well. I wonder if he's trying to grow a moustache much like Nigel Mansell, and indeed good old Red 5 Nige, where there's a big moustache there. If you haven't seen a picture of him, do look up Nigel Mansell, a legend of British motorsport, of course, and not just a racer in Formula 1, which is most renowned for, but also in the British Touring Car Championship, IndyCar, if you name it, he's raced in it at a major international level of some description, and indeed a bit of a home hero. But right now, going from talking about Nigel Mansell in terms of the driver and the team name for Bobby Moss to what Moss is able to do on circuit right now, well, he'll be trying to channel his inner Sir Sterling Moss as he makes his way on down. And well, I do know that Bobby Moss is quite the gentleman outside of the car, but inside the car he can be a ferocious driver and makes the move there on Valerio Tedeschi, who doesn't fight it and lets number 5 driver make his way on through. And that door number, of course, in reference to Nigel Mansell. But out he comes in, and up the hill he roars. A bit of oversteer there on the rear end of that McLaren. He doesn't look happy in that car, does Bobby Moss, and I wouldn't be surprised if right now he's really trying to get to grips with a car that's proven to be a little bit elusive. But meanwhile, back to your leaders here, and this is Alessandro Dalladone, and he's still in second with Tom Davidson just about now 2 seconds away. But look at this. Andrew Piker's caught up. Dalladone's pace is starting to fall off the cliff a little bit here. You can see then Petterlin flashing his lights behind, trying to say to the BMW at the head of the pack, look, let me go. And I think Dalladone doesn't want to let him go for the simple reason he'll be worried about losing the place. But the point being here, the field is now closing behind. Petterlin looks to the inside, tries to go for the feint, doesn't quite work. Andrew Pike is with them. Felix Moggy's almost there. So is Martin Blankensteiner. And then Kieran Sharp, he's a bit further back. He has found his way past Nick Clemens quite recently. And in fact, we do have a quick replay to explain how they swap the positions. And here it is. So this was coming out of Druids Bend, and Clemens in the end had a decent run, but Kieran Sharp had a monster of a run by comparison, and Clemens in the end decided to hold that inside line, in fact lift off slightly and let the McLaren driver go. But we must let them go, because back to the fight for second place, and here live it's Dalladone defending hard as they make the way through the right hand there of Lodge Bend, and over the crest they go, and Petterlin decides, right, I've had enough of being in the queue, I'm coming into the pit lane, forget about you, I'm going to leap you on strategy. And Petterlin, I think, has made the right call here because he's lost so much time by running behind Dalladone over the last couple of laps. And in fact, that time is so visible in the fact that whilst Davidson's not really been able to pull away, Pike, Smoggy and Blankensteiner catch up is the message that tells you are losing race time when you're suddenly seeing what is 3 drivers come out of nowhere, and they have gained lap after lap the best part of half a second on average each lap. And not to be rude about the Italian driver here of Alessandro Dalladone, in the fact he's doing a phenomenal job holding on to that second place, but you can definitely definitely tell his pace has fallen back a little bit, and he is now playing a bit more of a defensive approach. And I suspect the idea here is he's trying to essentially hold positions as best as possible in order to give himself a bit more depth on this opening stint, and therefore force his rivals to have to go for the undercut and put themselves into traffic. I wouldn't be surprised if the 61 drive stays out as long as the fuel tank will allow him, and his game plan is, why should I pit first? Let them pit, let them put themselves at risk of getting caught up in all the cars around. And in terms of where Petelin has come out, here he is. He's come all the way out in 17th place. He has got clear track in front of him because he has Francesco Cardulo the best part of 4 seconds up the road. The 16th place overall driver, 3rd place Am driver who's yet to pit, and Petelin is our leading driver who's had a pit stop. So that is how we're going to see exactly where the strategies will play out. So keep your eyes on Petelin if you're wondering where the strategies go, because he's your reference marker for the pit stoppers at the moment. And the next nearest one will then be Valerio Petretti, as the Italian job driver here tries to get things back in a rhythm after his mistake that put him out of sync. But he is ahead of Valerio Tedeschi and Paul Sims. And Sims has also made his pit stop. And intriguingly, in fact, Sims was one of the very first to come into the pits nice and early on. He came in on lap number 3. The 918 driver, if that pit stop does take him to the end of the race, that is a bit of a gamble, but it has worked out because it's actually moved him into 8th. But the important thing is it's put him right behind Tedeschi and Petretti here, and this may actually have been a very viable call to go for an early undercut, but we'll have to wait and see whether the fuel tank can go the distance. As we do say hello to Tez _ there in the YouTube chat, who is cheering on none other than Felix the Machine Smoggy there, and we'll definitely keep that nickname in mind, good sir, and I hope you're doing well. And well, definitely the German driver right now nailing his apexes as we come back to the man we're talking about, Felix Smoggy, as he roars his way then up behind Andrew Pike once again in towards the Britain chicane. With the cracked racing driver here being followed by Blankensteiner, another member of the team, and these drivers all running together at the moment. It is a game of follow the leader, but I do wonder where Andrew Pike will take a bit of a Petelin approach, which is he's running so close to the back of Dalladone that he might be effectively losing some race time, and therefore it's not worth losing the proverbial time. Instead, it's worth trying to change up the strategy. But then again, he'll know best. That's the only thing we can know, is when exactly do our drivers decide to go for it. Nobody knows until they do make the call to come into the pit lane, and it's when we see it. As Valerio Tedeschi has come into the pits for his mandatory pit stop, as I look at my Conte booth window, but otherwise everybody else continues the way on around. Race leader Tom Davidson, he's now 3.6 seconds clear. So the TSRC esports driver, he has been given the breathing room to operate with here as he makes his way over the crest, and as he does so, Dalladone stays out. Pike comes in. Pike's had enough. He decides, right, if Francesco Petelin's going to do it, I need to do it too to offset him. So this is going to be important. This will be crucial. Has Petelin done enough to come back out ahead of Pike, or has Pike been able to gain the time that Petelin has lost and therefore leap ahead? We'll find out soon. But meantime, we've got Clibbins versus Cheverton here. In fact, that's not Clibbins. That is Cheverton versus McCain. Clibbins is just up the road. And right now, Alan McCain is right there looking to try and poke holes in the campaign of Matt Cheverton early on. But back to the Petelin Pike fight, and here we see Andrew Pike leaving the pit lane, and in the end, where's Francesco Petelin? He is behind. So Andrew Pike has leapt ahead of Francesco Petelin, and suddenly Andrew Pike may effectively now be in 3rd place, perhaps even 2nd on strategy, depending on how the pit stop works out for Alessandro Dolladone. But we can definitely see that Petelin has lost out as a result of this pit stop, and Pike was saving fuel. Andrew Pike's pit stop time was 3 seconds faster than Petelin end to end, and that's where he's made up the delta. And well, what a swing there. But right now the 57 driver will know it's not over yet, and he's still got some hard work to do. As meanwhile, we'll come back to Alan McCain, who after seeing him all over the back of Matthew Cheverton, had a bit of an off track, I do believe, at Shell Oil's Bend, and in fact he's picked up some damage to the car. Now, where exactly is that damage? Can we see it? The answer is not quite. The car does seem to be leaning slightly to the right side. A little bit. I think the camera angle's not too flattering there, but I can't see it at the moment. The car seems to be wobbling a little bit on turn in. I wonder if he's picked up suspension damage. And here's a replay, I think, which might explain as we do take a look back in time. So this was McCain making his way into the Britain chicane, turned on in, absolutely fine. Oh, goodness me, nasty knock there to the apex tyre barrier, and that tyre barrier does not move. It does have a concrete interior to it, and the iRacing esports car in the end picking up that damage, and understandably, that is why Alan McCain is going to have to come into the bits. He does have that fast repair available, but that's a bruiser, and that is going to be a sigh of relief that he has been able to go the distance, and therefore he can weave it into his strategy. If it was earlier on in the race, that could have really certainly been the curtain call for his achievements here today. As meanwhile, we see the Cracks Racing driver of Felix Smoggy making his way down the pit lane into the exit. Andrew Pike comes through. Pettelin's with him, and this is incredible. He's actually made his way right into the middle of all this. They're all chopping and changing here. The fight for second place in this race right now is completely on a knife's edge, and suddenly Francesco Pettelin's not just lost one place, he's lost two. Pettelin has lost out massively here, and I suspect it's where he's used so much fuel in that opening stint to put all the pressure on Dallard on it, when in fact he should have been saving. But right now, as they make their way through 4 and in towards 5, well, one thing I can tell you is that Pettelin is not going to give up here for Absolute Motorsport Ace. He does have an absolute fighter's spirit, but it is a shock and a nasty one here when you do see two drivers who you were ahead of before you came into the pit. Suddenly, they are now ahead of you, and they've done it all by simply using strategy to their advantage. Pettelin runs a little bit deep there, coming through Britons, and the wheels are not falling off the proverbial bus at the moment, but he definitely there needs to keep his head in the game, otherwise he's at risk of them doing so. Meanwhile, in the AM lead battle, it's still Daniel Moffat who leads ahead of Mark Davenport, who's 3.5 seconds behind. But intriguingly, Davenport's pace is getting a little bit quicker. Not matching Moffat exactly, but he is now within half a second of him. So Davenport, I think, is now starting to feel more comfortable with the Privateer 16 machine as the fuel's coming out of the car. He may struggle with that Mercedes at the moment when it's got a lot more fuel in it, because, of course, fuel tank towards the rear, it makes it a much heavier car, and it causes that rear to swing quite aggressively compared to what it'll be like on low fuel. Conversely, of course, it's the Porsches who do have the fuel tank in the front of the car, and therefore the car gets lighter over the front as time goes on. But Kieran Sharp makes his way down the pit lane. As he does so, Alessandro Dolladone loses a place to Kieran Sharp here. Blankensteiner's right with them. Where's Pike? Here comes Andrew Pike as he makes his way on through. So Andrew Pike now effectively, well, oh, goodness me, no, he doesn't. I thought he was going to move into second place. Kieran Sharp, he's up into fourth as a result of this, but Sharp right now with a huge amount of fuel saving, only 7.5 seconds stationary. That is 2.5 seconds quicker than anybody else in terms of the stationary pit time. Kieran Sharp has leapt all the way through. He has gained 5 places in the pits effectively. Sharp right now is onto a monster run, and for Tom Davidson at this point, you've got to be thinking, does he know that his teammate has suddenly found a way to get ahead of the whole field by just simply sipping on the fuel in that McLaren? We said it was strong on fuel compared to its rivals, but Kieran Sharp has pulled off some absolute magic, and that is a long line of cars. It is effectively 6 cars fighting over what is on track when all the pit stops are done, to the likes of Ivan Falcone and also Nick Clemente in front. It will be the fight for second that goes the distance. It may be the fight for the win here. And now we'll wait to see where Davidson comes into this. Sharp, of course, will be a little bit worried that he is following the Italian job number 37 Mercedes of Falcon around, and the gap is coming down to just shy of a second at the moment. But Falcon will most likely be into the pits at the end of this lap, given Davidson's in. Now, this is the big pit stop of the ball, because he makes one down. He's taken the fuel tank the distance. He's managed this race since the start. He started on pole. He's led every lap thus far. Will he still be leading when he comes out? Where is Kieran Sharp? Here he is as we do look to the blimp camera. And you can see Sharp make his way through Lodge Bend. Davidson's already started to leave the pit lane. In fact, Davidson hits the pit limiter line there and builds up speed. Davidson's had an incredible pit stop. It's almost as quick as Sharp's, and Davidson in the end comes out the best part of 5.5 seconds clear of the field. So Tom Davidson in the end has got it on pace, he's got it on strategy, and right now he's looking untouchable for the remaining 9 minutes of the race. And now it's going to be a fight for second and third. Who in the Pro Class and Oval is going to be on that podium? Where Sharp and Pike currently, it could be a TSRC 1, 2, 3, but we will see. As meanwhile, Ivan Falcone has had to make his way to the pits. He has caused our time tower to glitch, but don't you worry, ladies and gentlemen, it will reset itself in due course. But Tom Davidson is your leader at this time, as Falcone has finally found the pits. But meanwhile, as our drivers continue on, what else is happening out there? And what we can see is that Sam Smith, he's chased after Paul Sims here for 16th overall. The iRacing Esports driver close, but not quite close enough to think about a move. And Sims right now holding on to a happy 4th place. And, well, supposing that Sims can get this fuel tank to just go the remaining few laps, I think the Privateer here will have pulled off an absolute miracle pit stop, having pitted on lap number 3. And indeed, the only driver who pitted earlier than him was Bart Raven, which we'll have to wait and see whether Bart has to come into the pits as well again. Well, if these two don't, well, Sims has definitely made it count. That is one of the big stories of the day, in the fact that he's gone for the ultimate undercut, and he has leapt 5 places in the AM class through strategy. He just simply stayed out of trouble and made it work to his advantage. But speaking of staying out of trouble, Nick Clewins versus Lenny Hansen, And Clibbins having a miserable pit stop by comparison and has fallen all the way down the ranks. In fact, I think they put on 4 new tyres on that Porsche for Clibbins, and therefore he's fallen all the way down the order. That's a mistake from the team, and the Irish esports driver here right now will be fuming because he's fighting for essentially a right to be inside the top 20. He's not fighting here for any points in class right now because he's fighting with AM drivers. And looking around the outside of Hansen, coming in towards the chicane, squeezes Hansen a little bit to the apex, albeit just about gives enough space. But Lenny Hansen has to back off there, and Bart Raven will be the next driver to try and make a move on the AM driver if he dares dream to do so. And as all these drivers continue to push onwards, well, we've still got all of our runners -1, I do believe. I think we have lost Bobby Moss from this race, unfortunately, as we look to Vincenzo Carillo, who is the last of our runners at this time, currently in 29th place, and he's chasing after Luke Smith where he can, albeit Smith is a sizable minute up the road, and the Italian job driver here just, I think, right now building up the experience. Speaking of Smith, well, he's fallen back to 12th place in the AM class, but he's still out there, still enjoying himself, the FD racing driver. Good to see. And Valerio Tedeschi is the man he would like to make a move on, but Tedeschi is a bit further up the road. Going back to Miles Owens and Mark Davenport, well, these two have been very close together in the fight for 13th place. That's Davenport trying to go around the outside here at Sherrills Bend. It's not impossible, but he runs a little bit deep there with the camera of the road. A bit of squeeze, and in the end, Miles Owens uses all the road, but I don't think he realised that Davenport was still there. Davenport had to lift off and put the brakes on slightly in order to make sure the two of them did not have a coming together. I think there was a small love tap, but nothing major, but Davenport will be a little bit frustrated by that, and there might be a word between the two drivers towards the end, as we can see there, Owens weaving from side to side, and I think the Altura Esports driver teasing Davenport a little bit there to say, no, you do not. And I think Davenport right now is saying, I will, because I want to chase down this man. And that is the privateer, the Taco Bell BMW, being piloted by Daniel Moffat, your AM leader at the moment. He's only 3 seconds away from Mark Davenport, and he will want to get there and try and take that win, because Davenport's pace has grown quite considerably as this race has gone on. But meanwhile, we have had a bit of drama here for Alessandro Dalladone, and also I believe for Felix Smoggy, who've had a bit of a side-by-side battle with each other. Martin Blankenstein has fallen a bit further back, and in all of this, what exactly has happened? Well, here's a quick replay to explain. So this was the two drives of none other than Smoggy and also Dalladon fighting to Island Bend. Too wide, they made the way in. Dalladon there on the inside, but then switching to the outside here into Shell Oils. And as he did so, very tight, very clean racing, but in the end runs out a little bit of road there and has to settle back as they made the way onwards in towards the Britain chicane. So brilliant defensive driving there from the German driver in the Ford Mustang of Felix Smoggy, and able to hold on to that position. So back we come. That's why we've got a gap to Andrew Pike and also Kieran Sharp started to form as they started to fight in amongst this leading pack. And meanwhile, 5 seconds up the road, Tom Davidson is just walking away little by little. Even if Kieran Sharp is beating him in terms of 1 lap pace, he's only beaten him by a 10th or 2. So therefore, Tom Davidson seems to be in control. These drivers right now all heading towards the finish at a rapid rate of knots, albeit time can't go any faster, but they'll feel as though time is speeding up. And we come from our AM leaders all the way back to 7th place AM driver of Martin Rendell, and I should say our pro leaders, and then we come back to our AM drivers here of Rendell and also Lenny Hansen. Albeit Hansen is 2.6 seconds behind, you'll see him in the rear of the picture, and Rendell right now trying to pick his way past the pro of Ivan Falcone, who decided to go as long as our race leader on that opening stint. And well, for number 37 try, it has worked out to a degree as Clive Baum makes his way on down. We've had a bit of an instant for Sam Smith. Hold up a second. That's Smith who's got around, and in the end he has to rejoin what is the chicane there, albeit just about misses the tyre barrier. And as he does so, with the number 21 drive, with the 27 drive, I should say, in 21st place now, he's had it all go wrong. He's had it all go backwards, and we're going to go backwards in time to find out exactly how it happened. And here, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, is the replay. Well, there was contact there with a Porsche, and I believe that may have been the Porsche of what is Craig Murphy, although don't quote me on that. I think there's a bit more to the story than meets the eye there, to be fair. Can we get a bit of an earlier replay with regards to that? Yes, we can, and here it is. So Murphy down the inside of Smith. This was the Amdrive making the move on the pro, and in the end, yes, there was contact. Murphy came in quite hot, and the privateer sending Smith on around. So I think there might be a word to the stewards after that. But as we come back to your live racing, well, a bit of a quick altercation between them, but Smith's back up to speed and now back in the chase. But then from them, Well, the AM class has definitely now started to spread out quite a bit. And we look to Paolo Beniti, who was at one point running quite happily inside the top 5 of the AM class, but it does seem as though the Italian drivers had it go a bit backwards for him, and therefore he'll be looking towards next round now, or hoping for a little bit of magic before all is said and done. With 2.5 minutes left on the clock, I think the AM class now has mostly settled down. We're just waiting to see. It's all going to be about survival to the finish line, and Lenny Hansley, as much as he'd like to close up to the back of Martin Rendell, well, he's got Bart Raven closing on him, although you can see there Rendell in the bottom of the picture. It could be a fight between those drivers before this is all said and done. So we'll keep our eyes on that where we can as they continue to fight then over 7th place in the AM class to Rendell and Hansen. But Rendell just about ahead with our leaders on their 23rd lap of the circuit. And with 2 minutes to go, they will complete that lap plus one more. These drivers, meanwhile, they've still got to complete their current lap and then they've got 2 more to go. So Rendell's going to try and hold on for just a little bit longer. But as he does so, we come back to your top 6 overall, and it's getting very interesting as there's all dust over the circuit. And Alessandro Dalladoni trying to hold off Francesco Pettina and Blankensteiner as we ride on board, looking back from the rear of your 5th place driver. The top 4 have walked away now, and Dalladoni once again finds himself in a defensive posture here. They come out of Britain's chicane. Right now, the 61 driver here thinking exactly where he can put the car. He wants to go defensive, but the problem is, if he does start the wrong place, then Petlin might be able to call him out and go for the moves. He gets so close there as they make the way on through the Hislop chicane. And in towards Nickelbrook Bend they go, and you can see Blankensteiner's all over the back now. The Ford Mustang looming large behind the BMW, so their kidney grills, and heading over the rise and in towards what will be the Druids Bend very shortly. We're right now Petlin between a rock and a hard place. He wants to get this move done, and the man we're riding on board with, but he wants to also make sure that Blankensteiner does not have any opportunities to take the place off him. It's a bit awkward now, and Dalladoni will be hoping that he can force Petlin to have to fight. Dalladoni goes a bit defensive here in towards Lodge Bend, doesn't get the best of runs. It's going to be a close run up the hill, but in the end, right now Petlin looking one way, then looking the other, all over the bumper of his rival. Thankfully not taking the camera off the car, and as they head in towards turn number 1, well, Petlin looking left, he's looking right, but right now it doesn't seem to be working out, and he can't shift Dalladoni out of sight as they come down towards turn number 3, and we've got Blankensteiner's right behind her right now, looking for a way in. He can't find it either, and the Ford Mustang driver would love to get both of them, but the problem is he's going to have to go for the centre of the century, and he's not confident enough to do so. He understandably doesn't want to risk it. Meanwhile, fighting going on further down the order. Sam's trying to find his way around the outside of Ivan Falcone in towards Druids Bend. That's definitely a bit of a hopeful move there, but right now he dares the dream to go for it. He can't quite find it initially, but it's going to be a drag race now up towards Lodge Corner as they fight over 13th place in the pro class. And Falcone goes defensive. Smith looking around the outside. Has he got enough grip? He hopes he has. He comes up the hill. It's going to be too wide then all the way towards turn number 1, but through dearly for a bit of a squeeze. And right now Falcone will hold on for a brief moment as the white flag waves to them. But back to Dalladoni, Petlin and Blankensteiner battle. They are, as we would left them, only moments to go. No change as they're heading towards Nickelbrook Bend for the final time here today. It's looking close, it's looking competitive. It's GT4 racing at its finest here at the Sim Racing Collective as they head up the hill. Dalladoni just needs to hold on now through 2 more major overtaking opportunities. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, well, for Tom Davidson, what a day it's been today to start off season 3, not only with pole position by a comfortable margin, but as he comes out the final corner, he's led every lap in this race. And for the Sim Racing Collective esports driver, it's a way to start a season. Take him out, Tom Davidson. You win at Oulton Park overall in pro. Header Kieran Sharp. And it's a 1, 2, 3 for TSRC, with Andrew Pike completing the podium ahead of Felix Margi for Cracked Racing. Alessandro Dalladoni does in the end take home 5th place ahead of Francesco Pettin and Blankensteiner, with Martin Blankensteiner being followed up by Matt Cheverton there for Aztec Racing on his debut in the pro class. A solid 8th place ahead of Marlin Schwab. And then we do have rounded off your top 10, Alan McCain there, the iRacing Esports Mercedes. Mav Gardner will come on home in 11th, but in the rear of the picture, it's your AM winner for the privateer with the Taco Bell BMW. Daniel Moffat takes the AM win ahead of Mark Davenport, who's the AM runner-up, separated by Miles Owens, and Valerio Petretti recovers brilliantly there for the Italian job to 3rd place in AM, knowing that a win was potential of the cards today. Craig Murphy will come home just off the AM podium there in 16th place overall, but 4th place in class in a solid effort, ahead of Clive Bourne, who rounds off your AM top 5 there in the Big Pig Racing by VRS 807. That's your top 5 in AM. Ivan Falcone in the end does well to recover. Sam Smith's run low on fuel right at the end. He loses all the places right at the close. Martin Rendell finishes then in 19th ahead of Lenny Hansen, with Bart Raven, Sam Smith and Nick Clemens completed that running order. And then we do have Paolo Maniti coming on home in 24th place, ahead of Francesco Cardulo. And the Passione course driver having a difficult day today, but still plenty more rounds to go and plenty of time to be found. That he was ahead of Paul Sims in the end, who in the end it does seem as though has had to park up the car. I think he's run out of fuel, has Sims. 1 lap too short there, and well, that'll be heartbreak for him, as we do have what is Valerio Tedeschi and Vincenzo Carrillo finishing a lap down. So for Sims, it was 1 lap short of fuel, otherwise he would have been 4th place. We didn't quite see that, but we take a look back in time quickly, and this is what happened to Sims. And as we can see, the car just crawling along there, and well, something tells me, can we look back a little bit earlier? Yes, we can. The car was just crawling along. He had run out of fuel coming over the crest of Hilltop. And for Sims, it was heartbreak there after doing an absolutely incredible early pit stop in order to make his way all the way up into the top 4 of the AM. Just 1 lap short, but definitely one to watch out for in the season to come. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as the drivers cool on down, well, we have the opportunity now to cool on down here in the commentary booth and take a look at the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, as here we are. And as we can see from the scenic view, to your results, subject to those inquiries, round number 1 of the Sim Racing Collective GT4 Series Season 3 on iRacing has got off to a brilliant start. And at the Oulton Park circuit in our feature race opener, our 40 minutes of racing was wrapped up with a victory by Tom Davidson for the Sim Racing Collective Esports overall and also in Pro. He was ahead of Kieran Sharp and Andrew Pike, with the team making it a 1-2-3. Ahead of Felix Moggi there for Cracked Racing, who did a brilliant job in bringing home 4th place. Alessandro Dalladone took 5th for the Italian job, ahead of Absolute Motorsport aces Francesco Pettelin, with then Martin Blankensteiner bringing on home at 7th place there for Cracked Racing, just ahead of Aztec Racing's Matt Cheverton. Marlon Schwab took home 9th for DLR FP1, ahead of Alan McCain for iRacing Esports, and that is how your top 10 finished. Best of the rest of the length was Mav Gardner for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, not quite able to mirror the achievements of his teammates, and indeed just falling foul of the top 10. But the AM winner was right behind him, and it was Daniel Moffat who takes the first AM win of the season there. A brilliant effort from the privateer, and indeed he'll be absolutely grinning ear to ear from that. Miles Owens took 13th place, and it was Mark Davenport, your run-up in the AM class, the privateer, ahead of 3rd place AM driver Valerio Pedretti. Now, we have covered the podium finishes, so we're going to wrap up the top 20 and with it move on to the class finishing positions, because that's where the points are scored. But as we can see, Craig Murphy, 16th there, just a little bit further back, but 4 seconds clear of Clive Bourne. We had top 20 rounded out by what was Ivan Falcone, the Italian job driver, coming on strong as the race went on, ahead of Martin Rendell and Lenny Hansen. The top 20 then gave way to Bart Raven, Nick Clemens, Sam Smith and Palamaniti, with a lap down there to after Francesco Cardulo in 25th to Paul Sims, who ran out of fuel right at the end, and there was also a lap down to Valerio Tedeschi and Vincenzo Carrillo, with their 2 laps down to Luke Smith and an early retirement for Bobby Moss, unfortunately. As for the class finishing positions, we start off with Pro, as we always do. And as we can see, Tom Davidson, your Pro class winner there, and bringing home the 1-2-3, had a teammates Kieran Sharp and Andrew Pike. And the team today demonstrating that fuel saving was the way to go here at Oulton Park, and that's how they got the job done. Unless they were Davidson, where Davidson was able to just bolt away. In 4th place, Felix Schmoggi there. Well, in the end, he used a bit of strategies to his advantage, but also was quite brave with the overtakes of the Ford Mustang, head of Alessandro Dalladone, who took 5th there, the Italian driver, for the Italian job, head of Absolute Motorsport aces Francesco Pettelin, who finds today that whilst he had the outright pace to change the win, strategy was not in his remit, and therefore he fell slightly short, but enjoyed some brilliant fights every step of the way. Indeed, it is a bit of a countryman's rivalry there between Dalladone and Pettelin, and I think that will continue into round 2 in a week's time. Martin Blankensteiner, 7th place of Cracked Racing, fought hard at the end for that 7th, with the likes of Nick Clemens and also Matt Cheverton and Marlon Schwab. Speaking of Cheverton and Schwab, they finished in 8th and 9th respectively behind. Alan McCain completed your top 10, and behind the iRacing Esports driver was Mav Garner, who was best of the rest. And then the Pro class was rounded out by Miles Owens, Ivan Falcone, Bart Raven had a frustrating race, and we're looking to bounce back in a week's time, as will Nick Clemens. And we also saw the iRacing Esports pair of Clemens and Smith both having difficulties, with Bobby Moss there, the sole retiree, 17th as listed. But but non-finishers classified. Then coming to the AM class, and as we can see in the end in the AMs, it was Daniel Moffat with a 2-second win. He led, and he did not look under too much pressure for the majority of the race. However, he was kept honest, whether it be by Valerio Petretti or Mark Davenport. Speaking of Davenport, second place there, the privateer, a happy race for him, ahead of Petretti, the Italian driver who rounded off the AM podium. Congratulations to all three of them. And Craig Murphy took that 4th place there with a brilliant effort, having gained 10 places overall, really carved his way through the field. Clive Bourne takes the top 5 on the first race of the season. A great effort there for the Big Pig Racing by VRS driver, ahead of Martin Rendell, with the privateer in the end having to settle for 6th, but only what was a 10th ahead of Lenny Hansen at the finish line. The bottom job racing driver couldn't find a way past in the end, but was able to find a way clear of Palomaniti, with Passion of course is Francesco Cardulio in the end rounding off the lead lap finishers of the AM class. It was a lap down with a lack of fuel for Paul Sims in 10th place, as it was for Valerio Tedeschi, who was best of the rest, and Vincenzo Carrillo was also lapped down in 12th. For the Italian job driver, he gave way to FD Racers' Luke Smith, who was 2 laps down in last but not least of 13th place. But that's a run through of the provisional race results, ladies and gentlemen, and with it, all the racing does come to a close here at the Oulton Park circuit, but our broadcast doesn't, because coming up in approximately what will be 5 minutes' time will be our first post-round interviews of the season, and we'll get to hear from a variety of drivers. Don't go anywhere, you won't miss those interviews. We will see you very shortly. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our first interview of the season. And we're going to be kicking off by speaking to one of our drivers in the winner's circle. It's going to be with none other than Daniel Moffat, who now joins me in the interview room. Oh, goodness me. I think we just called Daniel as he's talking to other drivers. Daniel, as we do grab a word with you, congratulations on the AB victory. A very impressive drive today, but how was it from your perspective?
Oh, thank you. Brilliant, scary, and these GT4s are harder to drive than the GT3s.
Well, tough cars to drive by the sounds of things, but you definitely made it look a bit easier perhaps than the rest of your AM peers. What do you think's the secret to driving them?
Just be extremely careful. Every exit of the corner, just slowly get your foot on the throttle till you get to full throttle. Every time you stamp on it, it'll trigger the ABS and you just don't accelerate at all, or the back end will try and come round on you. So just gentle on the throttle. That's about all I've learned tonight. Is just be careful.
So easy does it on the throttle, no doubt about it. So looking at perhaps the bigger picture then, talking about the GT4s, you've opted to go with the BMW M4 for this season. Is there a particular reason?
No, I had a little test drive in. I've got most of them, and I thought, right, I'll test drive them all, see which one feels most exciting. And this kind of, because it's a bit edgy and a bit more scary than the others, I thought, yeah, that'll keep me entertained for the season, so we'll go with it.
Oh, goodness me. Well, you're definitely put yourself out there as a bit of an entertainer, and we love you for it, to be fair. You've kept us entertained today, albeit starting with qualifying, a brilliant qualifying lap to put yourself on class pole and 10th overall. Were you happy with the lap?
Oh, 100%. The last lap was the only one that really counted. I messed up all the others. So finally got something reasonably decent. Well, for me, decent anyway. And yeah, I normally mess up qualies because my nerves get to me a bit and I always make mistakes. But yeah, it turned out good today.
Oh, 100% with you on that. It turned out very nicely indeed. And going into the race, of course, you started with a couple of places between yourself and your AM peers. I presume the strategy might have been just try and make an early break.
Yeah, so I was keeping an eye on the next AM behind me, and I was trying to let pros through without losing to. I was waiting for the right moment to let any of the pros through. So it took a few laps before I could find that moment where I didn't lose much time. And then I just kept an eye on the Delta then. And there was a guy, I can't remember his name now, he's really close behind me. And I couldn't shake him at all. And then he must have gone deep into one of the corners because he disappeared. But yeah, I was able to relax a little bit then because I was sweating while he was right on my bumper.
Well, we need some early pressure from my rivals, and I can imagine if we're talking about AM drivers, that may have been some early pressure, perhaps from Valerio Petretti, who did in the end take some grass with him at one point. But
that's it.
You were able to shake him, and from that point onwards, it seems as though the race was in your control. Although I have to ask, were you not perhaps afraid a little bit of Mark Davenport towards the end? Because he seemed to pick up the pace right at the end of the race.
He did. I was looking at that. I was looking at it and trying to thought, right, just look forward. Each time I look behind, I'm going slower into corners. So I was trying to. I was in denial, pretending that there was no pressure there, but there was. I was watching.
Oh, goodness me. Well, I can definitely appreciate where you're coming from there. I'm sure many will. The fact if you spend more time watching the Delta rather than the road, you start to slow down. But still, it wasn't to cost you the win today. And coming out that final quarter to see the checker flag, I mean, just take us through what it must feel like as an AM driver to, in the first race of the season, and be a winner by a good couple of seconds as well.
Yeah, I felt absolutely amazing. Last week, I was the guy that I hit the inside curb on after turn one, and I bounced across and I wiped out a few cars. So I was all week I've been feeling awful about it, and so going into this race, I was absolutely terrified. So once we got to that last lap, it was such a relief to have a good race after what I caused last week. I felt absolutely dreadful about that.
Oh, goodness me. We've gone from a dreadful feeling to an absolutely great feeling. And in a week's time, of course, we make our way to none other than what will be the Mugello circuit in Italy. Can we expect another win from yourself there?
I don't know. I can't promise anything. It's one of my favourite tracks. I haven't been on it for years, so I'm really excited to go and do it. I'm going to do some practice laps now to see what the Beamer feels like there.
Oh, goodness me. Well, the racing and the practice never stops for yourself. We won't keep you for too much longer, but just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Mr. Sharpie for hosting it and for everyone on track. Everyone's racecraft is brilliant. And thanks to my mate Paul Sims, who races in this league with me. He ran out of fuel at the end, unfortunately, but we were similar pace in the practice. He just had a bit of bad luck afterwards.
Well, indeed, a bit of bad luck for Paul as we did see him crawl to an unfortunate stop, only half a lap from the finish. But still, I'm sure he'll bounce back in a week's time and try to join you on the podium. But with that, Daniel, congratulations once again on a superb opening victory of the season. We look forward to more at Mugello, but until then, have a great rest of your evening.
You too, mate. Thank you so much. Bye.
Take care. So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy Daniel Moffat. You can hear it in his voice, absolutely jubilant and really riding a high. And what a way to open up the season as well. Pole positioning qualified after getting it wrong in his first 2 laps and saying it was all down to the final lap, but put himself there and put himself on pole with the best part of 3 places between himself and the nearest other AM driver, that being, of course, none other than the brilliant effort from Valerio Petretti. And after that, it was then about trying to hold on to lead. Albeit admitted, he was under early pressure until Petretti got it wrong at Cascade, and that's what saw him fall down the order. And then subsequently, it was about controlling the race. But he did notice Mark Davenport gradually closing towards the end, and as a result started to put himself under pressure, but then didn't put himself under too much pressure not to take the victory. He fancies a good opportunity at Mugello, but he's not 100% certain if he can make it back-to-back wins. That's why he's going straight into practicing with the adrenaline still pumping. And well, right now, definitely at the privateer in the number 10 of Daniel Moffat, he's set an early benchmark, which everybody is going to have to try and play catch-up to. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. We'll be back in approximately what will be 30 seconds time for another interview. But just before we go, we can see you there, and we do say hello there to a couple more of you, including none other than Farhan Wallace, who's been enjoying himself and cheering on none other than Martin Rendell. Good to have you with us, Farhan. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're back shortly for interview number 2. And on to our second interview we come, ladies and gentlemen. And joining me now is a driver who spent most of today fighting every lap. It's none other than Francesco Pettinelli. Good evening to you, Francesco. Goodness me, you must be exhausted from the racing today. How was that for you?
Thank you. And it was terrible for me. A lot of fun, but terrible because I was faster than the guy ahead, but it was impossible to pass. It's like Monaco. It's impossible. If you try, you crash, and I didn't want to. And so when they exited the pit and I saw like 6 cars in front of me, I said, "Shit, I fucked up everything."
Oh,
I don't know what did you understand from the outside, but for me it was pretty clear. I was pushing a lot, and they were fuel saving, like Formula E, like Kieran said.
oh, indeed. There was a lot of fuel saving going on. We could completely feel for you. We saw it all unfold where in the end, by fighting so hard with Alessandro Deladoni in the opening stint, you lost all those places. But before we talk a bit more about that, let's talk about one of the great parts of your day. Second place in qualifying, a great lap. How was qualifying for you?
Actually, it was pretty messy because the first lap was pretty good, even on cold tires. But my last one, I was 3 tenths down, so like 1 tenth faster than what I did. So I would have been on pole, but I misbraked the last corner. I braked too late, and I've lost the pole position, and that killed all my race.
Oh no, that's a shame to be fair that you made that one mistake, but still, knowing you
Yeah,
were so close to it, that's a sign of good things to come. But coming on to the race, fighting hard in the early stages, we saw you try to hold on to second place, but Daladoni just got ahead on that open lap, and then you spent so long chasing him, but as you mentioned earlier, it's just impossible to pass. I mean, did you think about trying to pit early to undercut him?
exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to do. But I was thinking maybe they can fight, so I can gain all while I'm on track alone, and they are fighting. But actually, with their fuel saving and the fact that my pit stop was 2 or 3 seconds slower, I lost everything. But yeah, fighting in those first in that first stint, it was pretty good. But I was a lot faster in the hairpin. I don't know if you saw that. I could break a lot later than him, but it was impossible to pass. That corner is like 3 4 meters wide, and it's uphill. And I've seen many crashes there.
Oh, completely understandable. And we did see how you were able to close up so well in braking. And do you think that's perhaps your secret to these GT4s for this season, is that you know how to use the brakes of the BMW better than others?
Yeah, that's probably my biggest strength. But in almost every cars, I have a very good braking. But while I'm on the apex, I have a little bit less apex speed. But yeah, I can brake a bit later than all the others. But in the long term, it's not that good because I use more the tires while turning and more the ABS, so they heat up faster.
I see. Well, still, like you say, it comes with its strengths and also its weaknesses. But sixth place today, strategy didn't work out and you got caught up behind one driver. But it's a good start. And next week, we head to a home circuit for yourself. We head to Mugello. How are you
Oh
feeling in
yeah.
for a visit to Italy?
Oh yeah, I love that track. Compared to this, it's like heaven. Uh, I love that place. I've been there many times, and there you can overtake. Actually, it's a wide track, a beautiful track in a beautiful region. So I'm very excited to go there.
Oh, brilliant. Well, we look forward to seeing you go there. And I get the feeling then, can we expect you to be on the podium, if not winning next time?
I hope so. I will give everything to it.
Oh, brilliant. Well, just before we do let you go, Francesco, is there anybody you'd like to say thank you or give a shout out to on tonight's broadcast?
I want to thank my team, my entire team, Marcello Caserta, that is the team manager, that is helping me a lot in these last days, and he will send me also a direct drive wheel. I'm using a G29 at this moment.
Oh, goodness me. Well, that's going to be a change when you do go to the direct drive world. We look forward to seeing what you can do with it when it does arrive. But with that, Francesco, it's been a pleasure catching up with yourself. Well done on your results today, even if it was a bit frustrating. But have a good evening, and we will see you at Mugello next week.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Well, here and there, ladies and gents, from the absolute motorsport ace driver of Francesco Petelin. Do apologise for the swearing you heard there on the interview. However, do keep in mind, of course, emotions run high, and it's only natural that I think he's feeling a little bit jaded from his race today, in the fact that whilst he had all the pace, he admitted in qualifying a small mistake cost him pole position. And then in the race, if he'd taken pole, would he have been able to do what Davidson did, which is just bolt away at the field very gradually? I think he would argue yes, but the reality was he lost second place to Alessandro Dalla Donne early on in the race, and as a result, he ended up falling backwards into the clutches of the whole field. And that then added to the strategy where he wasn't able to save the fuel. He had to work very hard to try and find a way through, couldn't make the overtake happen. And when he did see Kieran Sharp, Andrew Pike get ahead and Felix Smoggy in return, it really was a sixth place that was just relegated to being behind Dalla Donne all the way to the finish. But he's had a bit of challenge at Oulton Park. He's looking forward to the round in what is a week's time at Mugello, a circuit that he enjoys both in real life and on the simulator. And I get the feeling you may see the Absolute Motorsport Ace-Liv driver put himself all the way to the front. And I think that will make the Absolute Motorsport Ace-Liv YouTube account there, who we do say hello to, who enjoyed the race. I think that's going to make them very happy as well, particularly if he's also able to get on that direct drive wheel. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come. Who's it going to be with? Let's find out. And so we come to our final interview of the evening, and we go back to the Pro Class once again. And joining me now is none other than Andrew Pike in the interview room. Andrew, firstly, congratulations not just on the third place today, but also a Sim Racing Collective 1, 2, 3. I mean, it must feel quite a special night for the whole team to see all 3 steps of the podium taken up by your drivers.
I'm annoyed that Sharpie jumped me, to be honest, actually. We've already started. He had no business getting that far forward, but he saved enough fuel that he could do it. But yeah, I mean, you can't ask for much more. We've all gone in different cars, and we're all very much going to race each other. But it's nice that we've lined up there with a decent result for the 3 of us at the top. Definitely, it was a good race. I enjoyed that.
Oh, 100%. A great result for all 3 of you and a good podium finish there. But I've got to ask, coming into this round, Oulton Park, a challenging circuit. Some love it, some find it, as we just heard from Francesco Pettolin, as Monaco without the walls, perhaps. How do you grade Oulton Park?
I love the track. It's very hard to race. You see the same thing in real life, don't you? It's it's a game of jumping people in the pits, timing things at the right time, trying to pit so that you come out in clean air. I was fuel saving as much as I could get away with without dropping pace. I knew I couldn't really stay with Tom, but Alessandro and Francesco in front of me, I thought, well, if I can stay close enough and save enough fuel, then that's possible. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy the track for sure. You just have to play it the right way. I'm not especially good generally in GT stuff anyway, but I can look after a set of tyres, and I can save fuel from the endurance stuff that we do as a team. And that's definitely been of a huge benefit this evening there, definitely.
Well, as you say, a huge benefit to be able to save the fuel and also the tyres. And with that in mind, of course, 4th place in qualifying, I have to imagine you must have been quite impressed with your qualifying performance as a result.
I was surprised, knowing how many people are really quite fast in this type of thing and in our leagues in general. But I managed to get 2 solid laps in, really. I think the one I did before my 3rd one was also competitive, decent lap. So yeah, I was pleased, but I was more surprised than anything. I don't tend to qualify that well in anything, but especially not in these types of cars. As you're well aware, I'm very much a front-wheel drive fan. So to be able to pull something out of the bag in an unfamiliar car was pleasing, yeah, definitely.
Oh, indeed. An unfamiliar car, but a great qualifying lap. And then in terms of the race, we did see in the early stages the fact that you spent a large amount of time stuck in a pack for 2nd place. I mean, it was a pack of cars that only grew and grew. And at some point, something tells me in your mind, you may have gone, you know what, I need to get out of this pack before I get swallowed up by it and somebody else's strategy.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was happy. I was a sort of a 2nd back, maybe a bit more, and I wasn't being held up, so that was fine. I could cruise around and save the fuel. But once Pettolin bailed on trying to get past Alessandro and went into the pit, and I'd seen that he'd come out in relatively clean air, Alessandro made a mistake, which kind of forced me to attack him. Essentially, I wasn't really planning on it because I knew we'd lose time. That kind of forced me into it. I had one go at him and I couldn't clear him. And thought I needed to bail and get the pit stop done. I'd seen Sharpie on the relative within 5 seconds, and I knew how much he'd been saving fuel and he was likely to jump me if I dropped too much time. Sadly, the 2 seconds I did drop fighting with Alessandro cost me that position with Sharpie. Had he come out of the pit behind me, he was faster, but there's no way I'd have been letting him go past without a fight. So it did deprive you of a decent battle there, but that's how it goes, isn't it? I had to have one crack at passing Alessandro, because if I'd have cleared him, then I could have potentially stayed out a bit longer. I did have enough fuel to do so. As soon as I didn't, as you say, you're looking at what's going on around you and thinking, I can't get drawn into anything that's going to cost me a load of time because it will bite me. But thankfully, I got that one right.
Well, indeed, you got that absolutely spot on, and whilst your teammate may have let you come the end and moved into second, still you're able to get through into third, and from that point onwards, it really was quite straightforward to the finish by the looks of things.
I had to manage the fuel a little bit. I'd not cut it too close to the wire. I had about half a litre spare at the end, but what that meant was I couldn't push too hard to try and get back past Sharpie, so I tried to stay with him initially to see how quick he was going to be. Once he was pulling a tenth or two on me quite regularly. From that realization, I was then looking in the mirror just to see what was going on, but happily they started fighting behind me as well. So yeah, I did just sort of cruise it after that. I'd have liked to have had a fight with someone for it, but it's so it goes. I'm happy to take the points and finish where I did. But yeah, it was good overall. Enjoyed that.
Well, a much enjoyed round and some solid points on the board, a first podium of the season at that. And in a week's time, we head to Mugello. How are you feeling for the Italian circuit?
Well, the question will be whether I can make it or not. I'm not sure I'm available, which I knew this anyway when I signed up. It's not going to be every round that I can do. But I'll make the most of the ones that I can do. If I can make it next week, then I do really enjoy Mugello. I don't know what it's like in a GT4, but I'll be sure to put some laps in beforehand because I won't be able to hit the ground running, that's for sure. It's a track that I do enjoy, so if I can make it, then I'll absolutely look forward to it. But if not, I'll have to hang on to that and then wait for round 3.
Well, we do hope you are able to make the grid for round number 2, because it's not quite the same without you on the grid. But if you can't, we'll definitely see you in round number 3, like you say, for our first sprint race round of the season. But Andrew, as we get ready to let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the stream tonight?
Just everybody involved in everything we do, all of the drivers that take part, yourself for the broadcast. It's such a broad operation, isn't it, running this type of thing. So from the drivers that turn up right through to us boys that organise it, everybody that makes this what it is, definitely deserves a thank you from all of us, I think.
And in turn, we need to say a big thank you to you for joining me for an interview this evening. Congratulations once again on a third place to open up your season account. We look forward to plenty more when you're next on the grid, whether it's in round 2 or round 3. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening and well done once again.
Thanks very much, Paul. Speak to you soon, mate.
So here and there from our final interview of the evening, ladies and gentlemen, none other than Andrew Pike, the pro driver from the Sim Racing Collective Esports. And talking out there, happy for the team for the 1, 2, 3, but would have preferred it to be second rather than third, as Kieran Sharp was able to get the jump on him. Tom Davidson looked untouchable at the very front, but for Andrew Pike, he felt he'd done enough to make sure he finished second, given the fact that Kieran Sharp had started all the way down in 11th place. But that's the way the pendulum had swung. And talked about in qualifying that he surprised himself with that 4th place, not expecting to be on the pace compared to a good number of his peers, but he was able to put it together. And in the race, we gradually caught up to the back of Alessandro Dalladone, and he noticed that when Francesco Petalin made his way into the pit lane, that was really the crossing point for either staying out as long as possible or getting ready to pit prematurely. But in the end, he pitted prematurely because a mistake of Dalladone brought the two of them closer together, and he was trying to go an extra lap or two, and perhaps that's how the narrative then played out, with Andrew Pike missing out on securing second, but able to jump into third. But still, a podium to start off with. It'll be sad if we can't see him at Mugello and if we have to wait until he makes his way to VIR in round number 3. But either way, which round he's at next, well, we'll look forward to seeing him go all in and get stuck in the battling. And with that, can he make his way back onto the podium and perhaps even go for a first win of the season? Well, that we'll only find out next time out, as we now bring our interviews to a close. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, a huge, huge thank you to all 3 of our interviewees this evening, including first and foremost Daniel Moffat, your AM winner for today. Open up his account on the best possible result, with also a 12th place overall. Also, a big thank you to Francesco Petalin from Absolute Motorsport Ace-Liv in the pro class there, qualifying second, missing out on pole by a small mistake, and finishing 6th for the end with strategy not working out to his advantage today. And then also Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective Esports, the pro driver, who finished on the bottom step of the overall podium. Well done to all 3 of them on their brilliant results, and we look forward to plenty more racing from them at Mugello and in the rounds to come. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Sim Racing Collective in terms of who we are and the series we run on a regular basis, whether it be on iRacing, Le Mans, Ultimate, or other simulator services, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you check out our official website, and that's at www.tsrc.club. That website appearing on screen now. It's the home of all things the Sim Racing Collective, and you can see there on our homepage, a very straightforward homepage, where on the left you've got all of our socials, along the bottom you've got all of our partners and affiliates, and at the very top you've got links to the main page of the site, including not just the home page which you're looking at currently, but also our news page and also our rules in terms of how you can get on the grid and the rules to racing as part of a TSRC series. But if you're perhaps not more of a website person, instead are inclined to be more of a social media person, well, you can of course follow us on Twitter, and that's at twitter.com/TSRC_official. There you can stay up to date with all the latest news and announcements, all things our broadcast, and also the performances of the official TSRC esports teams as they look to do battle with rivals across many iRacing official events. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our partners and affiliates without whom this would be possible, including Motorsport UK's esports division, SimGrid, Coach Dave Academy, and Abruzzi Simulation and Motorsport. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attentions to next time out, because we have had a phenomenal season opener, and we will continue the momentum in Italy in round number 2 in a week's time. Save the date, save the time. Monday the 17th of November 2025, we make our way to the Autodromo International del Mugello, and we will look forward to seeing who of our drivers is able to conquer its sweeping Ben's best at a circuit that's wide open and primed for overtaking opportunities. But until then, we have been the Sim Racing Collective. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain and Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.